Thank you for coming, for sure. So, I do have the distinct honor of introducing Annie Morita. I first met Annie a couple of years ago when I introduced her, or when I interviewed her for an article that I was writing for a local publication. Now, I didn't know Annie. She didn't know me. And it took, I don't know, 58 seconds before Georgia, their dog, joined the interview, and we cracked up over and bonded over the fact that we are completely besotted with our dogs, and to some degree or another, they do run our lives. Our conversation continued, and we sort of noodled on Dan and Annie's decision to move to Jackson, and the process that took, planning, building a house, the story of moving her mom here, and I'll tell you, that's commitment when you move your mom to your dream location before you get to live there. So that's pretty amazing. Mom is right over there. And we landed eventually on talking about a very shared passion of both of ours, which is being able to live in this place, and how grateful we were to be able to have the rivers, the ponds, the lakes, the peaks, the valleys, and it was right outside of our door, and it was just part of our everyday life. And as our conversation wound up, I realized that I was talking to a woman of incredible warmth, immense generosity of spirit, a very funny and genuine sense of humor, and a sizzling amount of energy. You only need to look at Annie's resume for about a nanosecond before you realize that that energy is what produced an amazing career. And I suspect, Annie, that the longer you are here in Jackson, the more you are welcomed into this community, and the more embedded you get into the philanthropic culture that makes this community wonderful, so amazing, that we will get to see firsthand exactly what kind of accomplishments and results we can see with that kind of energy brought to bear. We cannot wait. So with no further words, Annie Morita.
I have not actually spoken someplace without a screen in about a decade, so you'll have to excuse me. I'm going a little old school. Thank you so much for coming today, especially in the middle of the week with this weather. I totally would have ditched this to go hiking. I'm really glad that you guys are here. Thank you so much, Sam, for doing this. This is why you should go have coffee with people at picnic, because then things like this happen. I want to thank also my great mom, who is here, Nancy Steeper, resident of Du Bois. And also my fabulous and probably very poor husband, who has been sandwiched between women from Smith College for decades. He's used to this. He's usually the only man in the room. This is actually a small group. He's been the only man in about, I don't know, 200 or 300 women. So Dan, thank you for coming. So today, and I apologize, I am going to read this a little bit because, again, I'm used to doing the projection thing, but I'm going to go old school. So today I want to talk about a topic that I feel is very relevant for this audience. Number one, having a fulfilling career, not just a career. And number two, having a rewarding personal life. And a strategy for allowing these two things to harmoniously coexist. And this is something that I call boss for life, which I will get to as we move on. But first, how did I get here? You heard a little bit from Lexi, but not just to Jackson, Wyoming, but how did I get in front of you speaking today at this amazing momentum event? I have to say, it kind of looks a little bit like summer camp, and it also feels like kind of a Smith College vibe, which is a good thing. So I just think this is amazing. Sam, this is really incredible. I have no idea how you talk these guys into serving lunch, but I'll figure that out later. So let me start with my origin story. So like most of us, the year 2020 is a real pivotal point in our story. January 2020 started with hints of this airborne virus coming from Wuhan, China, that led to lockdowns across the country and across the world. It also started a very negative trend, is that anything that you asked yourself or your friends or your family to do, and anyone in the world came back with a no, and it was a hard no. So no, you cannot buy more toilet paper or bleach products. No, you cannot leave your house, your apartment, or your residence. No, you cannot see your family or your friends. And no, we have no idea what this is, when it's going to end, or what's going to happen next. So my husband, Dan, and I had recently returned from Shanghai, China. And we decided that we should take an opportunity, because we were at lockdown in Los Angeles, that we would take an opportunity to maybe escape Los Angeles and go somewhere else to ride this out. So I've had a complete crush on Wyoming since 2005. My mom and I were out here on our annual mother-daughter trip. We started in Cheyenne at Frontier Days, and then decided to drive across the entire state. In a day, in a rental minivan. But I was completely hooked. I'd never been here. So we spent time at Grand Teton National Park and also in Yellowstone, and I just thought this was it. So over the next, 2-3 years, Dan and I started coming here on vacation. One trip turned into many, and we really decided that eventually when we wanted to, quote unquote, settle, that it was going to be here in Jackson. So we actually started looking for our second home here in about 2017. We moved my mom here in 2019, and then we arrived in 2020. So we are still very new, but boy are we happy. We just love it. So as a side note, this dream of living in Jackson is actually what kept me afloat when I was on assignment for Apple in China, in Shanghai, right before the pandemic happened. I was in Los Angeles and I picked up Outside Magazine. And there was an article, actually an advertisement in this magazine for the state of Wyoming for tourism. And it said, it's not just a trail, it's an escape route. And I was living in a city with 26.5 million people. There were more people in my compound than there are in this state. And I was looking for an escape route like you would not believe. So this is something that really resonated. And I actually, every time I would get woken up by Cupertino, California, because they had just gotten back from lunch and it was 4:30 in the morning for me, I would just look at that on my wall and say, you know what, this is all going to be worth it. This is why I'm working so hard so that I can get over to Wyoming. So after this very negative year of no, I decided that 2021 was going to be my year of yes. I was going to say yes to every opportunity that came my way, to just get this negative energy away from me. So yes, I would love to come to your February cocktail party, even though that means standing outside in your driveway near some fire pit as we drink cold alcohol. I would love to go Nordic skiing with the Grand Teton National Park Foundation, even though I just had partial knee replacement surgery. And yes, I would love to ride the entire Glacier Trail on horseback last summer. The first day is 20 miles, and I haven't been on a horse in 20 years. Yes, I will go. And yes, of course, I would love to meet you at Picnic for coffee. And this is actually how I connected with Sam. At the end of last year, I had been doing something for Silicon Couloir that Sam read about, and she invited me to come for coffee. You know, when you sit down and talk to Sam and hear her passion for Momentum and everything that they're doing, I just had to be a part of it. So Sam, thank you so much for asking me to come and be a part of this. It's just wonderful. So saying yes is something that I actually learned from my mom. My dad was frequently annoyed with me and my mom and said that luck just happened to us. And my mom would quickly correct him and say, no, we're the type of people who just pick up the phone and say yes. So this is something actually that I think she learned when she was at Trails and Ranch for Girls in Estes Park, Colorado. My mom's a big camp person and really believes that there are two types of people in the world: those who went to summer camp and those who didn't. Now, if you didn't go, it still works out. Dan didn't go to summer camp and he still got accepted into the family. So she really felt that the people who had been to summer camp really understood this idea about how to be self-reliant and create their own happiness. I think it actually got drilled into her because at the Jack Chile Foundation, at the Chile camps, they have a sign across the big fireplace in the dining room that says, after all, it's up to you. So from day one, anytime that I would have a challenge or I would be thinking about something, my mom would say, well, it's up to you. And so this is something that I did not understand until quite recently how much this was imprinting on me. So don't worry, Boss for Life strategy is coming. I'll just put that tease in there, right? This is called the tease down. Okay. So my first job out of college, I worked for these hooligans in Atlanta, Georgia at Cable News Network, which is CNN. This was basically summer camp with news correspondents for me. I loved it. At the time, CNN paid very little. There were no unions, but you could literally do whatever you set your mind to do. My glamorous friends from college went to New York City. They were working for ABC and CBS News. And as they were getting coffee and sharpening pencils, Operation Desert Storm happened, and I was producing news for air. I was also chasing a cameraman at CNN who I've now been married to for 27 years. And for those of you who, may have been born after a certain millennium at my table, this is 1991, just for reference. So I worked in Atlanta for CNN for 3 years and then transitioned over to their business side. I moved to Hong Kong. I worked there for them for a number of years, and I absolutely loved it. I was so naive because I just assumed that every single workplace in the world was going to be this mission-focused and this team-oriented at CNN. I'm sure there were politics, we just didn't see it. When there was a world crisis, we just worked together to get that news on air as fast and as accurate as possible. So my assumption was every workplace was like this. And boy, was I wrong. So after CNN, I actually got engaged and we moved to Los Angeles, California. I was recruited by Warner Brothers Studios, and in Jackson speak, if CNN had been a Bluebird Pow day, working at Warner Brothers Studios was like trying to get something toasted at Pearl Street Bagels. No offense at Pearl Street Bagels. So while at Warner Brothers, I worked for 2 female bosses that characters in movies could be based on them. The challenge is it was actually true. So insecure women who by their own accounts had made it in the corporate world. They were the center of everything, and they did nothing to help anybody else. Because they were because they were so empowered, they really felt that everything that they had, everyone else had to work for. I had never seen anything like this. At CNN, I could say, hey, I'm really interested in doing this type of feature programming. People would invite me in to the meeting or help me. That was not happening at Warner Brothers Studios. Because they were so empowered too, they really went after people who were new, who were younger, who were happier, obviously funnier, and they just would shut down any spark of energy that you might have. So I lasted for 3 years at Warner Brothers. But what I did is I took every negative action, interaction, comment, you name it, and I just decided I was never going to do this. I literally documented it and said, from now on, going forward, I will not do this. And I will surround myself with people that if I start to do it, they will correct me. And I started building my own team. Heads up, Lost for Life, about to happen. So from Warner Brothers, I moved on to Sony Pictures Entertainment and then to Electronic Arts. That was interesting. That was 1,000 men, 7 women, 6 secretaries, and me in one studio. That's another story. So after 15 years of doing the corporate thing, I did what most people do. I had a midlife crisis, and I went to Le Cordon Bleu. I actually went to be a pastry chef. I got my master's in baking and patisserie, and I went to work for the Four Seasons Hotel in Los Angeles. This is the best corporate break in the world, by the way. So what shocked me about being in the kitchen was that everything I loved about CNN happened in the kitchen. Is that one thing matters, which is having a good service. So everyone's on the same team. It doesn't matter if you're the executive chef or the dishwasher. You all work together. And by the way, if you screw up, like you burn your dessert, it's you. It's not the oven, it's not the recipe, it's not the executive chef, it is you. And so this was instant accountability, something that does not exist in Hollywood. And I thought this was fabulous. I thought these kitchen people were actually onto something. So from there, one of the big things when I was there is everyone called each other chef. It was just a term of respect that you would use, so that you're all working together. And I thought this was incredible because I had come from a place that had, I have to get this right, senior assistant executive vice president. No idea what you do. But if you're in garde manger or you're doing desserts and you say chef, people instantly know that you're working together and that you're on the same team. So compared to what I had experienced at the studios, I thought that this was great. From there, when I returned to corporate life, I decided that this chef mentality was something that I was actually going to use in the workforce, especially being in Los Angeles where title was just everything. And so I thought that this would be an interesting way to start working with people and command respect immediately that you're on the same team, rather than proving to people, especially women, that that respect has to be earned. Okay, so boss for life. I started thinking about this and came up with an idea that this is professional and oftentimes personal relationships that will continue long beyond what you're actually working on or the environment that you're in. So this is an idea that when you have a team of people, men and women, you invest in them. Because the more you invest in them, the more they're going to get out, you will get out yourself. And so boss for life for me really has two meanings. One is boss forever, and that's not what I mean, it's not my intention. Because some days, someday I will work for you. So understanding that you will not always be the top dog, you actually want to be in someone else's pack eventually, because it's more fun and not as much responsibility. And boss for your life, meaning that hopefully I'll have a positive influence working with you right now that we will carry forward. That, I may not see you for 10 years, but if you call me and say, hey, I'm looking at this job, what do you think? Or I need a reference or something, that you'll be there for each other. Because I'll tell you, as women in Hollywood, I'm friends with everybody I work with, except those women in Hollywood. So people want to be engaged with you because they feel it's valuable. If you provide value to people, this is easy, and it becomes a two-way street. People that have worked for me or have been on my teams, I've learned more from them than I would ever going to get an MBA or some professional executive study. You really just have to listen to people and find out what matters most to them. So this ROI, or return on investment, really turns into a win-win battle when you put it forward. It does involve putting ego aside, so sometimes, as you know, as you're coming up, you gotta keep coming up. But when you get to that point where you can actually take a pause and look around and say, I can help someone, by all means do it. So what is the strategy then for positioning yourself and figuring out how you do this both in your personal life and in your professional life? So when I give remarks and I'm talking about this, I always try and use what my husband would say, news you can use. What can I take away from this? Don't just yak on about your resume. So what I've done is I've actually put together kind of a punch list. So punch lists are fantastic, as you all know, because you can cross stuff off once you get it done. You get that instant validation that you accomplished something. So not only to accomplish something to move forward, but a lot of times the decision not to make a move is just as important. So this isn't all about charging forward and being that person. A lot of times taking that step back and really understanding, is this the right move for me, and contemplating it is going to give you a lot more value than running into something hair on fire and then realizing that you're running into something with your hair on fire. So I learned this a lot in 2020, actually. I got my certification for Wilderness First Responder. So this is basically your WFA, your Wilderness First Aid, on steroids, and your job is to basically hold whomever has had a bad time or had bad luck until real help arrives. So you are in the middle. So what I found with this WFA training is that there are 5 key steps that you can use when you are actually rescuing someone, and they directly apply to working in corporate life. So I've taken some liberties, which I will tell you about. But so step 1, I'm number 1. So that is actually what you say. You have to be ready to go. So you have to make sure mentally, emotionally, physically, that you are ready to step in. You need to know you're on stable ground, nothing is going to fall on you, that everything is looking good. Do you have all of the supplies you need? Do you have the training that you need? This next line, if I get in trouble, Dan made me say it. Do you know your shit? Do you know what's going on? So this is something that I think a lot of times, especially women, will put everyone else's needs ahead of ours. But if you're going to go for something that can be, am I going to go on this fly fishing expedition, or am I going to go for this promotion because I really want it? You need to make sure that you're ready to go. And you've got to be honest with yourself about this. When I was working for DreamWorks Animation, this is something that was really, really important to me, is to figure out if I was ready to go. So we had this small movie called Kung Fu Panda that you might have heard of. And Kung Fu Panda 2 was successful in the United States. In China, it was a massive success. And it led the studio to think about maybe we should go to China. And the idea was to put together a SWAT team to go and create product in China, for China, and for export to the rest of the world. So fast forward, we put together the first ever, this is a mouthful, U.S. Sino feature film animation joint venture. So this is the studio, 3 Chinese companies, one of which was the government, where we're going to put these movies together. And this is something that, understanding that opportunity and what that looks like is really, really important. So as we were getting everything ready to go, one of the vice chairs of the studio I was in his office, he was putting together the org chart. And as he drew the COO, Chief of Staff role, he said, "This is where you go." We'd never talked about my professional aspirations. I was gonna have to leave my team, leave the studio, move to Shanghai, and without missing a beat, I just said, yes. I'm gonna go and do this. Because I knew at that point that I was ready. I could keep doing the same thing at the studio, but I was really, really ready for that change. So step 2, what happened to you? Which is actually what you asked. So let's go back to Kung Fu Panda 2. So we're over there, we're putting all of this stuff together, we're putting opportunities together, and really understanding at that time who on my team was ready to go with me. So of course, you're going to a foreign country, a communist foreign country, you want to make sure you have some people around you. But it was really interesting because one of the facts I had to learn is that not everyone is up for that challenge, and that's fine. And so I also needed to make sure that they were doing amazing things so that while I was gone, more opportunities would come their way. So really in that phrase of what happened to you, it's more like what would you like to happen to you? Really understanding how you can support people, because just because you are going to fly 14 hours 3 times a month to Shanghai, other people may decide that they'd rather stay in Los Angeles and do something else. Step 3, not on me. So I am taking a little bit about this. So this actually means if you're rescuing someone, you want to make sure that you are not getting anything from that person on you. So if there is blood, if there's other things. I'm going to turn this a little bit and say, rather than not on me, you want to get stuff all over you. Not that stuff. But you want to be immersed in the experience. You want to understand what's going on. You want to be doing your research. You want to dive deep. And you really want to figure out how you can add value. So as I go off to Shanghai to run this thing for DreamWorks Animation, China for me has always had a great gravitational pull. I've been there since college. I love the people. I love everything. I love traveling with them. But I'm obviously a foreigner. I am never going to fit. So in the West, we're really taught the value of being individual and the importance of freedom. In the East, the good of the group takes priority over the needs of the individual. So direction comes from the top and is never challenged. So this is going to be a real challenge for my Boss for Life strategy, because people are told that they need to come and serve me, which is not something I'm interested in, but something that I might need because of the culture that I'm working in. So here comes this foreigner with a US passport, speaking Mandarin Chinese with a Japanese last name. This actually could be a reality TV show in China. So how did I manage this? So it really does matter how you show up. Be gracious, be courteous, ask questions. Eat the food, even though you have no idea what it is, and take the time to know people on your team. This is something that's not only true overseas, but it's true here. And do this as part of your everyday life. For DreamWorks Animation, my assistant was critical for this Boss for Life strategy. She'd worked with foreigners before, and so she could tell me when I was about to step on a landmine. She was really also my partner about how I show up. Showing up as a US citizen is how I should be showing up. Showing up as someone trying to fit into Chinese culture just was not going to work. And she was actually the first person who was the recipient of Boss for Life strategy. She eventually, because she was just too talented to be an assistant, we got her a role outside of the joint venture. I then called her a few years later and said, I'm coming back and I'm coming with Apple and you have to come with me. And she did. And eventually when she kind of hit the wall at Apple, she had her dream job, which was to go to a gaming studio. She's still one of my closest friends, mainly because she's the only person I know who can eat at the same pace as my husband. So step 4 in our rescue strategy, are there more? So again, I'm going to equate this to the business world rather than kind of for first responder, you'd be looking for other people around you. So from DreamWorks Animation to Apple. Working at Apple for me was the top of my bucket list, and working for Apple in China was just something you say yes to. By the way, when the offer came, we were on the Tahogany Pass at the last possible place you could sneak off and use the facilities before you go around the turn. I think I was hanging out of the car trying to get a signal because I didn't want them to think I hung up on them. So this actually was something I was so ecstatic about. And my team was Greater China. So my team was based in Shanghai, Beijing, Hong Kong, and Taipei. So the person who was running the group prior to me was pretty divisive and put up barriers not only on location but also on nationality. Someone from Taiwan does not take kindly to being called mainland Chinese, and it was not a good situation. But fortunately for me, I've lived in every city where we had offices. So I went to college in Taipei, I went to college in Beijing, I've worked in Hong Kong, I've worked in Shanghai, so I was able to just throw that out pretty quickly. From day one, I told the team that we were going to be the most successful team that Apple had ever seen, and I wanted them to join on the journey. I wanted them to just have any position that we had open. I wanted the most applicants. Apple has 140,000 people, so this was a tall order. But I came at it that I wanted them to be part of the team. So again, when you're asking, are there more? Look at opportunities to not only help one person, but is there a group? Is there a team that you can lift up? Is there a team that you can promote? You know, even though that you're at one event, what else can you be doing to help others, you know, in their journey as they move forward? Let's see. Okay, so this is actually, so coming out of Apple, Boss for Life is something that actually became a phrase in Mandarin as well as in English. We'd come back to Cupertino, California, which is corporate headquarters, and you'd hear Boss for Life, because people knew that if they choked a presentation, one, I didn't care, but I would help them move forward. And I think that's also just another really good environment to have when you are running teams. Mistakes happen. If they happen too frequently, you're going to have to make a change. But just give permission to people to actually make that first mistake. They'll learn quickly. Step 5, dead or alive. I'm definitely changing this. So I'm changing this to, will you thrive? Even if you're not in a management position, make the commitment to whatever you choose to do. Nothing irritates me more than when people sign up for things and they don't follow through. So show up, be there, participate. If you are in a seat, make it worth your while. This is one thing that, you know, I learned early on as well. I was on the board of NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership School, which is in lovely Lander, Wyoming, and I loved it. And I got the offer to go to Apple. Now, traveling every year from Shanghai, China to Lander, Wyoming was most likely not going to happen. And it really killed me to give up my seat, mainly because we didn't have enough women on the board at the time. But I did step down. I didn't stay on in absentia. I didn't get up at 2 in the morning to take the phone calls. I gave the opportunity to someone else. I think that's another part of the strategy, is you just have to, at some point, you need to move on. We've all been on boards where you have people who've been on for decades. You have no idea what they do. So make sure that you're, you know, cleaning the seat, leave it nice and fluffy for the next person coming on, and give the opportunity to someone. Sorry, I'm getting down. Okay, so here we are in 2020 in beautiful Jackson, Wyoming. They say wisdom comes with age and experience. But don't worry, if you are just coming up, you know, everything gets going. For me, I will tell you, at 45, you get wise. You get really wise. Then you get 50, and it's amazing. So it actually is good. It doesn't mean you have wrinkles and you're getting old. So you may be tracking in your personal relationships, but really feel that you're lacking in interest at work. You may be feeling valued at work, but you never have time to return that phone call to go on the raft trip. Whatever you're doing, just remember that your ability to create your own reality is going to invite other people in. If you had told me a year ago that I would be a catalyst for Wednesday night bingo at the Elks Club and would later join as an Elk, June 27th initiation ceremony if you're in town, I would have never believed you. But this Boss for Life strategy simply means doing everything you can for others, and in turn, doing everything that you can for yourself. So I'll review quickly. Step 1, I'm number 1. Take care of you so you can be at your best. If you can't show up, don't show up. Go at 100% when you can. Go at 50% when you can. but just make sure you take care of you. Number 2, what happened to you? Understand the opportunity and understand where you fit in. But also understand you may not fit in, which is perfectly fine. It's your decision. Number 3, not on me. Just show up well. Again, if you're going to participate in something, be there. Be attentive. Be off your phone. Just give your time to the opportunity. Number 4, are there more? Look at the big group picture as well. Help individuals, but help them be part of a group. As you know, this sisterhood that we all have is pretty amazing. And make sure that you are finding other women who can come into it and help them where they need help. Number 5, will you thrive? Is this something that you should pursue or something you should pass on? Because in the end, after all,
It's up to you.
it's up to you.